Welcome back to the next episode of Art at Home with Gippsland Art Gallery. I'm Hayley, and today I'm going to take you through techniques such as a flat lay, a zine and a collage. First I'm going to take you through a collage and a flat lay, and then we're going to tie these together in a zine. You might use these techniques when you are presenting your work in different formats, just because it's a more interesting way to present your work, or you might be promoting your work in other formats or exploring other ways to create artworks at home. This is just a fun little experiment that you can do yourself, and you will be using materials that you've got laying around the house, or you may be in isolation still, and you can use whatever you have available around you. Alright, I'm just going to start our flat lay by giving us a background to work with. I'm just going to use white paper because we're just using materials that I might use in a normal artwork. So we've got a white plain A3 piece of paper as our background, and then I'm going to start in the last section of my flat lay and just put in the bigger materials and sort of work my way forward. So I'm going to place this down, and we're going to try and aim for something that looks aesthetically pleasing from the top, because we're aiming for something that you might post on social media or something like that, or something that might look good in a portfolio. Smooth out my tape, and I might place that next down the left hand side of my page. Bigger items, like I said. And this is going to act as framing for our flat lay, for my smaller objects. So as you can see, I've got my bigger objects in the center, in the outside of my flat lay, and then I'm going to put my last large object in the middle to give us some dimension to work with. So my fabric is going to lay in the center and give me an object to build off the top of with my smaller objects like my Stanley knife and my pencils. And I'm just going to lay them on an angle because it's opposite to everything else, which is laid out quite geometrically around the outside, and just placing my items down one by one and then adjusting them if I need to, however I think looks best. And then once I'm happy with the arrangement in my piece, I will take my picture. I'm quite happy with how that looks. I might adjust things if they're not laying the same distance apart, like my red pen and my Sharpie are not the same distance apart, and I might adjust it like that. I might line up the end of my objects so that they are all in line and try to make it look quite organized. And then if I was doing a class demonstration, I might take a picture of this so that they can see all of the materials that we have used, and it also makes it look quite visually pleasing before we are to begin the class. So this might be used for something like a materials list or something like that. I've used an image from an old Annemieke Mein catalogue for my background on my cardboard here to lay my collage on top of, and I'm just going to start by placing most of the bulk of my images around the bottom to give it a more organic feel and fill up the space below this image and kind of create this as the focus in my collage. I'm just going to pick out some details in our collage by going over the top of it with Posca markers, like we have in a previous video where I picked out details of the face with Posca markers on one of our artworks. So I've put our crop frame in place, which I just did up rather crudely and rather fast because I just wanted to show you how cropping works with a collage, because it makes it look like a finished piece. Because once you take it away, you've got all your jagged edges and you've got bits where my Copic marker has bled onto the paper or something like that. So to make my frame, I have just folded an A3 piece of paper in half and then cut out the section in the middle, and then just chuck that over the top of my image. And I've played around with the placement of my frame, having a look at where I like the look of things. I might like the crop there because it has all of my main details in there. It's got my Copic marker in the center. I really like the center image. That's my favorite part of the collage. And I like to have parts of the leaves and the messy bits that I've done on the outside. But to make it look more like a cohesive piece of work, I played around with mainly the 4 outside corners of the collage that we've done. But I preferred this corner because there's a lot going on in this section of the artwork, and there's enough going on in the artwork in the background, middle and the foreground, enough to keep your viewers' attention on the work. And so I feel like that's quite a well tied together collage, and so I would frame it like that. I might chop off the sides and that might be my finished piece of work, but it depends what you prefer when you complete your collage. I'm just going to start by picking out my larger images to place in my background on my 2 A4 sheets of paper. This is going to form the basis for my zine, so I'm going to cut them out and stick them down wherever I think I'm happy for them to go, and then I'm going to move on to create a middle ground and a foreground for my zine and then photocopy those. Alright, so I've laid in my background, middle ground and foreground using my largest images in the background and to draw attention to my middle ground with my medium-sized images, and then my smaller images on top and kind of interceding and overlapping over other ones to make a bit of interest within the 2 compositions. And then I've added 2 simple text words over the top of it just to give it a little bit more of a zine feel with my torn out text from newspapers and collected images. And I've sort of gone for more of a music or grungy aesthetic to the zine, and I'm going to photocopy these so that they'll become flat images, and then I'll fold it up to turn into a zine. Now I'm going to move on to folding my zine. So I've taken my two A4 pages, photocopied them, and then photocopied them again to make them an A3 page. And then I'm going to fold my zine following the process that I'm about to show you. And then that will be my completed zine. I might use some Copic markers on top of that just to add a little bit of extra detail or emphasis to certain images in the zine. This might be a fun way for you to present a body of work that you might not know how to collate once you have taken it. I might have a series of photographs of people that I've taken, and I might want to compile them into one body of work so that I might be able to present that or promote it in a different way, and it just kind of looks a little bit more interesting, and it's kind of nice having it as a flat image without the corners flipping up and stuff, and it's fun to be able to play around with your work in a sort of new way or new format. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Gips Art at Home. If you do complete any of these tasks, don't forget to use our hashtag if you post any of your work online, and this will help us find your work so that we can see what you've done, and it'll be a great little way to interact with the gallery as well, and we can see how this was used in your own home. So we've done a zine, a flat lay, and a collage, and you can use all of these techniques together to make your own zine, but you can use all three of them separately, and that's all okay. Thank you so much for your time.